The defendant is present. Mr. Chesoff and Mr. DeGuerin. We have Mr. Bailey and Mr. Milius, Mr. Miata, and Mr. Lewin. Mr. Lewin, you may resume your cross-examination of the defendant.
Mr. Durst, would you characterize your level of involvement in Kathy's medical school admissions process? Were you heavily involved in that?
I helped her with the various applications.
And you previously testified that Kathy applied to how many schools did you say?
15.
And you said that Einstein was the best school and she didn't get into any of the other schools, correct?
One of the top 2 or 3.
And I want to show you, what's our exhibit number, Mr. Milius? 25A. 25A, this has been previously marked. I want you to take a look at this document. This is your wife, Kathy Durst. This is from an item of evidence that's already been stipulated for admission. And this talks about the courses that she took. Can you go down to the bottom of that, please? List below the medical schools to which you've applied. Columbia, Cornell, Yale, Harvard, UCSF, Medical College of Pennsylvania, Boston University. These are some of the top schools in the country, correct?
Correct.
So, Mr. Durst, when you said a moment ago that she didn't get in anywhere and that Einstein was the first or second best school she applied to, that's just not true, is it?
I think it is true.
So you're going to tell me that you think that Einstein is more highly rated than Harvard, Yale, Columbia, Cornell, NYU, and UCSF Medical School?
I think Albert Einstein is more highly rated. I guess the answer to the question is yes, I do.
Well, Mr. Durst, would you agree that, as an example, Harvard and Yale are probably the 2 biggest named colleges in the United States?
Would I agree with that? I'll go along with that.
Would you agree?
I wouldn't disagree.
Well, so my question is, in your answer, you made it sound as if Kathy couldn't get in anywhere, that she applied to a bunch of second-rate schools, and the only school that took her was Einstein because your dad got her in there. Do you think that that testimony is a fair representation of what actually happened?
Objection, mischaracterizes the testimony.
Sustained.
Do you believe, Mr. Durst, let me back up, you have just basically testified, correct, that the only reason Kathy got into medical school was because of your father, Seymour Durst, correct?
Correct.
And you've said that she didn't get into any other medical school that she applied to, correct?
Correct.
And you implied that the other medical schools she applied to were not as good as Einstein, the first or second best school she applied to, correct?
Objection,
That's what-
mischaracterizes.
What?
Did the witness answer incorrect? That may...
I think he said correct, it's my understanding.
Okay, answer me, Stan. The witness can explain himself, in other words.
You said correct, right, Mr. Durst?
Yes.
So, again, my question to you is, Mr. Durst, do you think that your characterization previously, your testimony, that Kathy Durst applied to all those schools and the only one she got into was Einstein, and that it was the first or second best medical school that she applied to, do you think that that is a fair characterization?
Repetition. Rule.
Yes.
All right, let's go. You heard the testimony of Kathy's medical school classmates, correct?
Correct.
Would you agree that they all raved about what an outstanding student and presence Kathy was as a medical student?
No, I would not agree with that.
Which medical student who testified said anything that was anything other than complimentary about your missing wife?
Well, I certainly don't remember the names of the doctors who testified, but one of them testified that Kathy had been missing lots of classes. Dr. Wick testified that Kathy had been missing lots of classes, and that Kathy said the reason she was missing classes was because she had to go to court for her divorce.
Do you
Now,
recall?
Kathy did not have to go to court for her divorce because we never filed for divorce.
Mr. Durst, do you recall those witnesses testifying, several of them, that your wife had told them, shown up with injuries at school, and was telling them while she was missing rotations and classes that you were emotionally and physically abusing her? Do you recall that testimony?
Yes.
And Mr. Durst, would you agree that with respect to what kind of student your wife was, what kind of doctor she appeared that she was going to be, that uniformly her classmates said that she appeared to be an outstanding student and a welcome addition and part of their class?
Objection, mischaracterized the testimony.
Overruled.
Some of them said that.
By the way, did you hear the testimony of Dr. Stephen Saffier? Safyer? Do you remember Dr. Saffier?
No.
Dr. Saffier was the medical school classmate of Kathy's who later became the head of the entire Montefiore healthcare system, including Einstein. Do you remember he and his wife, Dr. Paula Marcus, testified?
I don't remember.
Do you remember Dr. Saffier testifying that in his position running the entire Montefiore system, that he was familiar with the founders of Einstein, and that in his experience, being a founder would not result in a relative being given any preferential treatment for admission? Do you recall that?
No.
I want you to assume for a moment that that's what Dr. Saffier said, that that was his testimony. Do you have contrary information to that? Do you have personal knowledge that what he testified to is incorrect?
Well, of course, he's not going to acknowledge that people can get into medical school through pull.
So, Mr. Durst, isn't it true that the reason that you diminish Kathy's accomplishments is because her success was very difficult for you to handle?
Just
Overruled.
Just the opposite. I was enormously proud of Kathy and told people how proud I was of Kathy.
Mr. Durst, is there a reason why, during your direct examination testimony, you stated that you did not believe that Kathy had gotten in to medical school on her own merit? Can you explain why that was information that you wanted to get out?
Objection, mischaracterizes the testimony.
Overruled.
I was not getting information out, I was answering questions.
Mr. Durst, do you think that whether Kathy Durst, whether she had, quote, help getting into medical school, etc., do you think that has anything to do with any relevant issue in this case?
Yes,
Please explain. Why would that be a relevant issue?
because I've been accused of killing Kathy, and it was said, just what you have said, that I felt she was no longer being subservient to me, and that resulted in me killing her.
Can you tell me what her getting into medical school has to do with what you just said?
You raised the question that Dr. So-and-so said that Kathy said she was being emotionally and physically abused. She was not being physically abused. I don't know what emotionally abused means.
Okay, let me ask the question again. What I'm trying to get you to answer is, please explain how or whether Kathy got into medical school on her own merit, had help from your father, etc. What does that have to do with any issue in this case? You know what? I didn't hear the ground.
I'm thinking of sustaining that.
All right. Do you agree, Mr. Durst, that you were extremely controlling in the relationship with Kathy?
No.
RD 392, 121110, page 30, page 29, line 25 to page 30, line 18.
This is part of People's 268 on the transcript. It would be pages 6 through 7.
Was there a moment when you felt that her effort to kind of get out there and go to medical school and do those things went from being a good activity for her, career for her, and it started to be a distraction from her relationship with you?
Well, I was always very controlling. In terms of the stuff that's out there, that I tried to get her out of medical school, and that I wouldn't pay her tuition. I wouldn't pay her tuition because she'd hired lawyers. My lawyer had insisted I don't pay for anything I hadn't paid for me in the past, and she had gone and done one of those federal programs where they pay for it and you take a loan. The lawyer said, don't pay for the medical school. And that was when she first disappeared, and I didn't know where she was. I knew that she was doing bad in school and gotten a whole bunch of incompletes, and I was under the impression that she wasn't sure she was going to graduate.
Mr. Durst, you mentioned in that you were asked a question about whether or not it bothered you, Kathy going to medical school, that it started to be a distraction from her relationship with you, and you answered on your own. Your answer to that was, well, I was always very controlling. Why did you give that answer to the question you were asked?
The always controlling is an exact quote from Andrew in terms of a distraction from a relationship. She'd been in medical school for 4 years.
So, Mr. Durst, in that answer, you also mentioned that Kathy was doing bad in school, a whole bunch of incompletes, and that you were under the impression she wasn't sure she was going to graduate. You heard the testimony in this case, and you've seen the records. You would agree, Mr. Durst, that she was on track to graduate and was doing well in school, correct?
I'm not sure she expected to graduate.
Well, Mr. Durst, you heard the testimony and you've seen the records that you've stipulated to regarding Kathy's academic progress. You would agree that she was set to graduate and to go into a residency program, correct?
No, that was the big problem. She was afraid that if she graduated with these grades, she would not get an opportunity to intern in the hospital she wanted to get interned in. Kathy pictured interning in one of the endless suburbs around New York in some small suburban hospital, as opposed to one of the big teaching hospitals. That's what Kathy was going through when she disappeared.
So my question to you, Mr. Durst, did you hear the testimony from the individuals in this case and the medical records and the stipulations and her file, which is evidence that demonstrate, you would agree, that she was doing well in school at the time she disappeared and she was all set to go through the match to get her residency? Would you agree that's true?
She did not want to go through the match because she was afraid that the match would send her to a small suburban hospital.
So that's not my question. I'm going to try one more time. Please listen to the question I'm asking. You've heard testimony. You've seen documents. Do you agree that the testimony and the documents show, and I'm not asking what Kathy thought or what you say she said, the testimony and the documents show that Kathy was doing well in medical school at the time she disappeared, correct?
Albert Einstein had a pass-fail system. The top 10% got honors. She had no honors. She had to make up several clerkships. She thought that the match would send her to a hospital she did not want to go to.
You saw the dean's letter that they write for residents, correct? You've seen that from Dean Cook, correct?
Correct.
And you agree that in that letter, Dean Cook was very complimentary of Kathy, and that is the letter that is used, you would agree, by programs to review candidates. Is that correct?
Not that I remember, no.
I'm sorry, repeat that, please.
I do not remember that.
Do you agree, Mr. Durst? Are you aware of a letter from the school regarding Kathy's residency where they said either she's not going to graduate, she's not doing well, she's not performing well? Do you remember such a letter?
I believe Dr. Cook wrote such a letter to Dr. Cooperman.
So what I'm asking you is not whether there was a note that Kathy might be calling. I'm asking you, on the official documents that are in her file, are you aware of any letter that goes out to the programs that is anything other than highly complimentary of your wife as a medical student and future doctor?
I am not aware of such a letter.
All right, I want to talk about for a moment.
Sean.
He was 25.
Mr. Durst, you mentioned a moment ago that Kathy did not have any honors at all. I want you to take a look at what is up there.
Hold on.
exhibit?
25.
Go to the bottom for a moment, please. Do you see that H stands for honors, Mr. Durst?
Correct.
Do you see honors for medicine? Do you see honors for infectious disease? Do you see honors for human behavior? Do you see that?
So far, I'm seeing P's for passes.
So you don't see the 3 H's that I just noted.
So when I see honors for medicine,
So Mr. Durst, you just said Kathy didn't get any honors at all. That's not true, is it?
I was wrong. She got an honors for medicine.
Well, she got an honor for medicine, she got an honor for human behavior, correct? And there's a third honor. My question to you is, Mr. Durst, when you said it, were you just recklessly putting out information that you thought helped you, or were you knowingly lying? You would agree it's got to be one of the two, right?
Object upon question.
Sustained.
Mr. Durst, were you incorrect about what you just said about Kathy not having any honors?
I was wrong.
So when you say you were wrong, were you intentionally wrong, or were you simply stating something that you thought helped your position without knowing what the true information was?
I did not think she had gotten any honors.
It's actually, it's really two questions.
Did he object, compound? I couldn't hear him.
No, it's in form of the question. So technically, you should make that into two
Sure.
different questions. Each
At-
alternative can be posed
Sure.
separately.
At the time that you gave your answer, that Kathy did not have any honors, Mr. Durst, was it your belief that in saying that it helped your position in this case?
I was answering a question.
Well, you've now agreed that your answer was wrong, correct?
I agree she got an honors in medicine.
Let me ask again. Was your answer wrong?
My answer was wrong.
Now, the next question would be, Mr. Durst, was your answer wrong because you said something that you did not really know, or was it a deliberate lie to make your wife look less accomplished?
I said something.
Overruled.
I said something that was wrong.
Were you aware that in giving the answer that you gave, that it supported your position, the argument that you were making, that Kathy was not doing well in medical school and was not going to get the residency she wanted?
Yes,
Would you agree, Mr. Durst, that thus far, every mistake you have made where you say, I was wrong, or I made a mistake, or I misspoke, every single instance involves a situation where your error, where your misstatement inured to your benefit by making the misstatement or the error? Would you agree?
Objection, argumentative.
Overruled.
I'm not going to agree to that statement, no.
Well, Mr. Durst, isn't it correct that every time a mistake or misstatement has been pointed out, it has been where the alleged mistake is something that is harmful, inculpatory to you and your position in this trial?
Objection, argumentative.
Overruled.
I would not agree with that.
Can you give me one instance, Mr. Durst, where you have made a misstatement and where you have said, corrected the record, where your correction is actually more inculpatory worse for your case than what you originally said.
Objection argumentative.
Overruled.
I cannot think of anything offhand, no.
All right, let's talk about Kathy's transfer from Western Connecticut State. Do you remember that period of time in your life, in her life?
Yes,
Isn't it true, Mr. Durst, that the reason that Kathy transferred from Western Connecticut State was because you wanted to move to the city so you would not have to commute?
I don't know what you mean transferred. She went to Western Connecticut State College, graduated in June of 1978, and started Albert Einstein in September of 1978.
Mr.
What
Durst,
do you mean by transfer?
Mr. Durst, isn't it true that midway through Western Connecticut State, you wanted to move closer to the city, and that for a brief time, Kathy transferred to school in New York before eventually returning back to Western Connecticut State? Isn't that what happened?
It was way before then. We were still living in Dad's house in Katona with Douglas and his children. And she decided that she wanted to transfer. I think she went to NYU for a semester and then transferred back to Western Connecticut State College.
Mr. Durst, isn't it true that she was extremely happy at Western Connecticut State, and that the reason that she transferred was because you insisted that you wanted to be closer because you couldn't handle the commute?
No, that's not correct.
You've had a chance to review Kathy's diary, correct? You know the document I'm talking about, correct?
Kathy doesn't have a diary.
Mr. Durst, are you aware that there is a document that's been referred to as Kathy's diary? It's 10 pages, that it was given in discovery, and that in that diary, she relates that the reason she transferred from Western Connecticut State was because you wanted to move to the city so you would not have to commute.
Objection, nothing in evidence.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Say there's nothing in evidence about that, Your
That's not an objection.
Honor. Not, it's a question not based on evidence.
Okay, overruled.
Your Honor, can we see a copy of the,
I am aware.
Your Honor, may we see a copy of the reference?
Before it's presented, yes, thank you.
One moment, Mr. Durst. Do you guys have debates on that?
Looking for it.
The KD diary? I have it here. Hold on.
Additional objection on relevance from.
Overruled. That's overruled.
One moment.
96162, 96171.
Can you show? I'll do it. May I?
I'll show it, they can come over here.
I'm trying to find it.
They're showing it to us.
You can see it.
Can you go to page 3 of 10, please?
Foundation, we object.
Your Honor, may I put this up on the screen, please?
There's a lay a foundation,
I'm sorry?
lay a foundation for it. A foundation for the document. There's been no stipulation to it, it's, lay a foundation for it, but.
Your Honor, I think I
Before you
need to talk to the court at sidebar.
Okay, we'll go sidebar. In fact, why don't we take our lunch break? Ladies and gentlemen, do not converse among yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with this case. Do not form or express any opinion on the case. We'll return at 1:30. This document, the objection was that it lacks foundation. There was also a relevancy objection. I do think it is relevant. You may have better material than this, Mr. Lewin, as these things go. It doesn't rank as high as some of the other issues in the relationship, as I understand it. This is a new one. But it is relevant, clearly, to the it's again part of the same pattern that shows a motive and intent, so it's clearly relevant. But yeah,
Your Honor, the people haven't, he has said he didn't know what it is, so is it being introduced to refresh his recollection? Because if he doesn't know what it is, how can he comment on it?
well, there must be a foundation for the
Correct.
document, and that has to be established. So I'm all
Perhaps
ears.
maybe we should consider putting that off for now until you can figure out how to get it in, or ask us at some point
Well,
for a stint.
We got a break. We have a break now. So
Well, let
this is
me just briefly explain. So,
Yeah.
we filed a motion with the court, which was granted in full. That motion was filed, this is Exhibit 18. That motion was filed on March 22nd, 2018.
yeah.
This was titled, Notice of Motion and Motion to Admit Defendant Acts of Domestic Violence and Emotional Abuse against Kathy Durst, etc. That was Exhibit 18. It was admitted.
So it was. This already has been admitted by stipulation,
No.
or by.
No, you.
So pre-trial, you identified this because I recall.
Yes, this is in the motion, just so it's clear, we filed this motion. The court ruled that the motion in its entirety was granted.
Yes.
In the motion was a request to admit the diary was an attachment.
Okay.
So at this point in time, there's two ways I can do this, and this is the point of it. The point is that Mr. Durst is now disputing. He is saying that, no, you know what, that is not why Kathy, I did not have her move to Connecticut. I did not have her transfer schools. She didn't even transfer schools. So the two entries that I'm interested in are on 3 of 10, Kathy writes, and I'm paraphrasing, that they moved to the city. She had to leave Western Connecticut State because Bob didn't want to commute. She then says on the same page that she said that she felt very uprooted leaving all of her friends in Western Connecticut, but agreed to transfer. And this is basically a diary that's almost written to Mr. Durst. It's almost-
So let's talk about this admission of this document. So
Yes.
I believed, I'm confident that I ruled at that time that this was relevant, right, and admissible.
Yes.
Right, so as far as admission,
Yes.
this also requires authentication, right?
Yes.
There's no stipulation of those facts, so he obviously can show it to him,
Yeah.
and that he may acknowledge it, or perhaps there's some other basis.
Let me do this, Your Honor. I think this will
Yeah.
work to do it since the jury's gone. What I want to do is I'm going to show him the two parts of the diary that I'm interested in. He can then indicate whether or not that refreshes his recollection or whether it doesn't. If it doesn't, then the next step I have many other options as to what I can do, but this is kind of the basic one to start. So with the court's permission,
Your Honor, we're not quarreling that they talked about this before. Our argument is that before he's questioned about it, it's either in evidence or it's used for the first purpose, which is to refresh his recollection. If it doesn't, they still have to put it into evidence.
Well, I mean, we can use exhibits for, pardon me?
Established foundation.
Sure. Right. Relevance has been established already. And so, so very well, Mr. Lewin understands there are different ways to go about it. And the first would be if he acknowledges this document.
can I approach and show him, Your Honor? Actually, maybe it'll be easier if you can put it up on the screen, Mr. Millian.
Okay, this is a hearing outside of the presence of the jury, 402 Evidence Code.
May I ask a couple of questions, Your Honor?
Yes?
Mr. Durst, do you recognize this writing as belonging to your wife, Kathy? Mr. Milius is making it bigger, Mr. Durst, so we can all see it. There we go. We're on page 3. Do you recognize that writing as belonging to your wife?
Fair. This side.
Mr. Durst, I wasn't asking you to read the whole document, I was asking you, do you recognize the handwriting?
I don't know if he hears you.
Do you hear me, Mr. Durst? Mr. Durst, do you recognize the handwriting?
I recognize the handwriting,
That's Kathy's handwriting, correct?
correct?
So I want to ask you, in this document, she says, can you go to the 2 parts that I just mentioned about the moving?
Objection.
Yes?
That's just recognizing the handwriting is not recognizing the document.
He's not done yet, Mr. DeGuerin. He's still, he's mid-inquiry.
But no, he's about to go into the content of it, Your Honor.
Yes, out of the presence of the jury, it's fine.
What's it?
He might circumstantially authenticate it. I mean, handwriting, the subject matter, who else would know these things? So he can know.
So, Mr. Durst, you would agree, have you had a chance to read the items that are there in front of you? We started on page 3. Oh, is you still not hearing me? Have you had a chance to read that, Mr. Durst? Have you had a chance to read that?
Are you asking me a question?
Yes, have you had a chance to read it?
I'm in the middle of reading it.
Would you agree that with the parts that you've read, that appears to be Kathy Durst talking about very personal issues involving her life and your marriage?
Yes,
And would you agree, Mr. Durst, that this would appear then to be a writing that your wife authored, that she wrote?
she wrote it.
Okay. In this document, Mr. Durst, there is an entry where your wife says that she transferred from Western Connecticut State because you wanted to move to the city. Hold on 1 moment.
Well, we don't have too many moments. It's 12:01. You finish it within this minute. We'll allow it, otherwise it's our break.
Page 2.
cricket.
Okay, then we'll, you want to wait 1 more minute here?
1 minute.
Go to page 2. My fault.
Starts with in the winter of 74.
Keep going. Gary, now you're okay.
Winter 74, there you go.
Right there.
About to say.
Okay. Do you see where it says, Mr. Durst, starting in the winter of 74, 75? It says, Bob decided he did not want to commute into New York anymore, and I would have to transfer to a school in New York. I felt uprooted in a sense, but agreed and was accepted to New York University. Does that refresh your memory about the 2 issues that I asked you about? Mr. Durst, does that refresh your memory about the 2 issues I asked you about? What I just told you, starting with in the winter of 74.
I'm not seeing what you're seeing.
Why don't you pick it up in front of the jury? I don't see why they can't be shown to the jury.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor, we'll do.
We object to it being shown to the jury, it's not a foundation.
Well, he's authenticated this as a writing made by his wife.
Okay.
It's authenticated as her handwriting, Your Honor.
Yep, that'll do.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, recess.
Your Honor,